Want to be in the know on all things cannabis? You're in the right place. Regulations, growing, running the business.
I need a dollar.
Welcome to the $1 Pound Podcast. Here are your hosts, industry professionals, Ryan and Joey.
Welcome to the $1 Pound Show with Joey Espinoza, Ryan Manevar.
I'm Andrew Gogliucci.
There you go. And what do you do, man? We're just going to go fucking nuts with this thing, honestly, so...
I run delivery service here in Monterey County. I don't know, network up and down the whole entire state, and basically sell medical cannabis.
There you go. How long you been doing it?
Growing or the dispensary? Everything in total?
Yeah.
First time I grew, 18 years old. You move out of your house, out of your parents' house, get your own spot, and we got an aeroponic system, me and one of my roommates. And from then on, it's basically every house that I lived in, we're growing. So, it's been, can I say that?
Yeah, definitely.
It's been 10 years now, so over 10 years. From houses to warehouses and everything in between.
Yeah, don't worry about cussing. Ryan pretty much started the show off cussing in the first 10 seconds, so I guess we set precedent.
Yeah, fuck it.
And what's the name of your company?
We're the Nug Company. We have a spot here in Monterey and one in San Diego. Couple locations in San Diego. We're also, partners in with Prime Extractions. It's more of, SoCal-based extraction company. It's been around for a while now, and it's basically what we do.
Okay, here's a weird question. When you got into this, like how did you get into it? Like, was it a decision you made just randomly, like you wanted to get weed cheaper, and then it just spiraled out, or just...
No, I always, in high school, sold weed, good way of money. Mm-hmm. But there was this certain grow that I went to out in Fresno, and this guy was like pretty well known for his grows out there. He did this RG GDP, what was Ryan Green, Granddaddy Purple. And I went out there and it was a 60 light grow that me and my buddy went out and we helped harvest. Basically after that, I was like, dude, he hooked us up with like 1.5 pounds each for helping harvest between everyone. Went back to Huntington Beach with that. And at that time, you were selling ounces for $420 all day. Mm-hmm. And that's what pretty much gave me the start into it. After that, I had enough money to buy the equipment and, never really looked back. I was like, this is a great way to make some money.
That's kind of one of the most interesting things going on right now, actually. There was the New York Times article that just came out about Harborside having a huge grow here. And for the people that are in, we've known about this for a while. Obviously, when you commercialize and you grow bigger and grow more, there was a time you could make a lot of money off an ounce. Like, how has that changed?
Yeah. I was just gonna say up till recently that you can make a lot of money off an ounce. Yeah, right. The industry's changing here rapidly, I don't know if it's totally for the best. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to go in real big. I think it said like in that article, Harborside had 50 acres, 47 or something like that.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I know they can. If anyone can get rid of it, they can. But there's a lot of other places out here that are going real large scale. And like me and Joey have talked before, once this market collapses down and California comes into effect, and you can't sell outside of the state, where's all this really going to go if it's really tracked from seed to sale or whatnot? So I think a lot of these companies that are going to go that big are going to go belly up, and they're probably going. That's when the price of the ounce will come back up, or the pound,
right?
Hopefully, not to the dollar pound.
It's a really weird time because I don't know if it ever will go to a nice value. We think it's going to kind of just go to nothing. And
it's already, you could pick up. It's down. You get good greenhouse for $1,000 a pack now. It's already pretty much, you can't go much lower than that.
That's what I'd say to a lot of people is like, I think just the small amount of people here locally that have got started. And then when I say small amount, I mean the number of people doing it, not the size they're doing it at. Because obviously the size they're doing it at is something we've never seen before.
Huge.
But a lot of them don't realize that they're already affecting the market, just this small percentage of people. And so as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, if they're affecting it in one season, what's going to happen when they're perpetually harvesting their crops?
Yeah, no, it's gonna go 10 times worse what it is now, and it's funny because some of these people that are jumping into it haven't been doing it for that long, so they probably don't even realize what they're doing to the market. They're getting into it now and just thinking, hey, this is the price. It's a big difference. Right. These people that have been doing greenhouses or whatnot, not on this scale, out in the mountains for years and years, they can't live off their harvests anymore that they used to, just because of what's going on here. And, these people that are just jumping into it now, they probably honestly don't even realize what they've done to the market.
I totally agree. I mean, how many of them just came in and they just started selling? Yeah. They didn't take the time to say, like, okay, what is the general market value of this? What have guys been traditionally getting it for? They just came in and had a ton of it, just want to get rid of it.
100%.
So they just threw a price on it.
Get it gone. They're in the rat race, really. And, it's... You can't knock them for it. They're getting in and they're doing their thing, and it's working for them now. But like I said, let's see how long that's going to work for them after, the state comes into effect.
Well, think of it this way. I mean, as an agricultural product, which it really is, at the end of the day, there's going to be a crash coming up for this just because of how much is there. And
definitely.
It's getting a lot harder to move weight as it is. So considering we're going up, 100-fold? As far as production across California legally to be able to do this. Not to say that we haven't been doing a lot, but at this scale and at the cheapness you can actually do it at now, what would you predict, like at least the California crash for cannabis? We're talking a year and a half. We're talking the end of 2018 when everybody's gotten 4 or 5 crops in legally at a state level, even if they're giving out the state license at the time.
I don't know. I think it'll go a little bit longer because there's going to be a little bit of a rush, whether it's tourists or whatnot. California, it's been known for growing quality cannabis forever, and now it's going to be a recreational state. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think in what happened in all the other states as well, there's going to be a spike, for the first, I don't know, 4 years, maybe 3 years, and then, you might see it go down, I think.
I think we probably have at least like 5, maybe 8 years, just because there's so many variables that go into that. They're producing it for a lower price, but then they also have all these costs that they never had traditionally, because if you're growing in the black market, you don't pay payroll, you don't have taxes, you don't have overhead like insurance, you do in a legitimate business. It's a whole nother ball game, so the numbers completely change. So I think that, how long is that going to take to stabilize? How long is it going to take for them to have reasonable taxation? Will they ever do that? I don't know. Are we going to have to force that through an initiative? I don't know how that's all going to look. And a lot of that all takes time. So I think that's going to affect the price dropping. So it's going to fluctuate.
That's an interesting thing about the taxes as well. We've been looking at it a lot of ways of like certain counties have a much better tax rate than other ones. It was also based off of which county got in first, technically, because it gives you an advantage when you apply for a state license. So, I mean, in this county, for example, you did an awesome infographic that broke it down, and it's like painful when you start stacking up all this stuff. $15 a square foot, going to $25 in a couple of years. That is insane on a product which cost is technically going down for what you can sell it, and you have an increase in taxes going along. That's absurd. Then you have other counties like Calaveras where it's like $2 for outdoor, which they allow there, which in this county we don't. Monterey we don't. And maybe in 2 years we will, but we'll see. They'll have an advantage there as well. In Calaveras, it's $5 for indoor and mixed light. So when we have $15 a square foot here, that's a nightmare in comparison, versus other counties which are doing it by a gross receipts, which I think for scalability purposes is a lot easier to do. So we're talking about this at a county level here, but just think about the other states. As you brought up, rec's going online everywhere else, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens when you have a rec state that has reciprocity and we can start sending our weight back and forth? The logic to grow in those other states is going to be based off of their climate, how much sun they get, how cheap energy is, water, and then their tax rate. Like if Arizona says like 1% tax across the board on gross receipts, they're getting everything. Like everybody's going there. It's just going to be over. So as California's trying to figure out the taxes, And the best part, obviously, you said this before, is like the best part about the black market is like there's a 0 tax rate on it. That's so appealing to stay in there. As we try to make the transition from black to gray to white, they're making it really difficult from the gray to the white step. It's nuts. So what is a reasonable tax? Like if there was just a universal reasonable tax for this thing at a state level, and I mean eventually we're going to be getting hit with some kind of weird federal tax too.
Of course.
So what is a reasonable tax to stabilize this? And keep in mind, like in other states, when they tax things like liquor, booze, alcohol, however they're breaking it up, they have absurdly different rates for how they do that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the question has to be even a little bit deeper, because you say, what's a reasonable tax for your local tax and your state tax and your federal tax? I mean, that's where we really get kind of screwed in this industry, is we just have that compounding tax rate throughout the whole chain. That's what they're doing in Monterey County. You're a grower, you're getting taxed. Then it's going to go to a blaster or manufacturer, it's getting taxed there. Then it's going to a distributor, it's getting taxed. Then it's going to testing, it's getting taxed. And then it's finally hopefully going to the dispensary, unless the state comes out with different licenses, which they may, and it's getting taxed there. And so it's just, that's what makes it become 30 to 40% or higher in some cases. So I think overall the tax should be obviously, maybe 5%. Overall, 5 to 10%, depending on if you're talking about medical or rec. And I know a lot of people will say, no, well, medical shouldn't be taxed at all, and I get that, and I believe in that. I just don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon, considering how long this transition is taking overall as a society, with cannabis becoming more legitimized and accepted. We still got a ways before we don't get taxed on medical, in my opinion. So overall, I think like 5 to 10%.
Yeah, I agree with you. 10%. I mean, that sounds fair. I mean, in a roundabout compared to what they're trying to do,
Yeah.
I would take 10% all day. But it's funny, you say that we're basically producing agriculture. Well, look how cheap the agricultural taxes are compared to, and like the land that there's no $15 a square foot tax on a field. I mean, we're getting these greenhouses, and that's what it is. It's a dirt lot. That's all you're getting. None of these are up and going. I mean, until previously, there's a few, but everything needs a huge remodel on it. Everything, and if it was a row crop, I don't even know what are they, like 15 cents a square foot or something ridiculous, probably.
Nothing in comparison.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what makes cannabis unique too. It's in that interesting spot where ag gets tax breaks, I should say, because they look at it as something that's necessity for life, right? Having food to eat is important, so they try to incentivize them to get into that business by getting tax breaks and things like that. And then you have the medical side, like I was just talking about, where they have tax breaks because it's medicine, and they look at it as helping people. Again, cannabis is like kind of in the middle. It's not really considered medicine. It's not considered a food crop or ag yet. I know they say it's an agricultural product, but it's still not treated exactly the same, is my point. It still has certain things that affect it. And we're still kind of in that gray area, I guess, when we really consider what is this cannabis and how do we tax it.
What would you give more of a definitional distinction between medical grade cannabis and recreational adult use consumer cannabis?
What's the difference?
Yeah, the real difference.
I mean, you say it all the time that really it's at the point of consumption, the reason that you're consuming it, right? If you're hanging out with friends, it's recreational. If you're having a good time, if you legitimately have a medical ailment that you're trying to resolve or fix, you take it for that reason. Sometimes, like Ryan has said before, he'll wake up and his back hurts, so you smoke medical cannabis, let's say. Yeah. And then later in the day,
I'm feeling all right.
Like he's feeling okay. His back doesn't necessarily hurt, but he just wants to have a good time with his friends and be social, and he'll smoke recreational cannabis. So, the easier way that I've seen other people say it is it's at the point of the counter, because that's how we're regulating it. We're not really regulating people in their house smoking so much, but we are regulating how you buy it and what it is that you're buying. So at the counter is really where it would be medical or recreational.
Yeah. Okay. That kind of goes to another point. As far as the taxation, when you're getting hit, wouldn't it be simpler if you just did it at the point of sale, basically, where you got hit with the tax, instead of getting hit as a cultivator and then a manufacturer?
Doesn't Washington do that? Is that the state, or is it?
I believe Washington is the one that does. They have like 37% overall tax, I think.
It's taxed at the end at the sale. Right. That way, how much easier would that be for the state, for everyone?
That's how it generally works. That's how it generally works. That's why you get a seller's permit, right? So that you can buy something at a wholesale rate and they don't charge you taxes, and then you resell it to somebody who eventually it gets sold at that retail rate, the taxes come in.
Yeah, I mean, the headache would be gone.
You brought that thing up earlier too, though. How is that really going to work with the seed to sale tracking system? It's not. I mean, a lot of people are just going to grow weed off the side and figure out how to rig the system. Like, you grow in a closet in a dorm room, you can certainly figure a way around that, and that's why it's going to keep going into black market. Is like, as long as there's a black market somewhere, like,
it'll get
it's gonna
filled.
Be shipped.
Yeah,
Right.
I go up to Oregon a lot, and like it took about 4 months, and fucking everyone that they didn't need to be permitted, and they could sell to a dispensary. You know, the dispensaries figure out backdoor ways. It's inevitable, you know, it's going to happen.
And that's why the talk about the numbers in this that we're talking about is so important for the government and the people regulating us to really understand. Like, yeah, you're going to get a piece of the pie. Yes, we understand you need a piece of it to have a community benefit. Some people will say, will say they're just being greedy. So whatever the reason is, they're going to get a piece of it. They got to be reasonable about it, because if they're not, no matter what happens, they're going to have that black market problem.
It's going to push right back into the black market.
Exactly.
I mean, be fair. You know, don't take the whole plate.
And one thing I have a question for you, Andrew, is kind of leading into that is, do you think that the legal market will eventually, the legal regulated market will eventually influence the customers of today? The customers of today that call a delivery service or call a dispensary, do you think that eventually, because now we have these regulations where you have to test for residual solvents and you have to test for mold and you have to test for pesticide, will that eventually influence them to be like, on the black market side, I don't want to buy that weed because it doesn't have a pesticide test, and now I'm educated and I know that's bad?
It could very well. I mean, especially on the concentrate side of things, you know, flower. A lot of people that have been smoking flower for this long, when this happens and this turns, they've been buying it off the black market for years before, and nothing's happened. You know, concentrate, it's more of a new thing. So I'm sure, and you know, hopefully they'd be smart enough to be getting lab tested stuff, or you know, from a quality company or something of those sorts. But yeah, I would hope that it would. I would hope that it would change people's outlook on it. You know, get away from that open end tube backyard blasting boogie.
I see it, and in my experience, I see it usually as, you know, who are the influencers in the cannabis industry? What entity or person or thing is influencing the overall culture and what people want and what they look for? One of the biggest things is obviously hip hop music. Of course. Rappers, right? Like Burner and Snoop Dogg, and they have a huge influence on it. Yeah. That's why Girl Scout cookies is what it is today, is because it got pushed by the hip hop culture. So the other thing I think of is maybe the influence will come from the government and the regulations that they give us, because we haven't had that for decades in this state. We've never had these type of regulations where it has to be tested for these things. Will that educate the customer and make them want that type of product even in the black market? Or are you just going to say, I don't care because it's black market, it's cheaper? It's
cheaper. Yeah, well, there's always that you know, group of people that they don't mind. It's swag, outdoor, whatever you want, mix, they'll smoke it. Some people like that. Some people, and that's all they can afford too, you know. Shit's really expensive. You know, as you say, it goes through all these taxes, and then all the, you know, the price to make it, plus all these taxes and all the fees to get it tested. The price is expensive. So that's where the black market's made, is off of the cheaper stuff, you know, the stuff that's not taxed. And, you know, not to say people can't open end blast a tube in their backyard and it tastes good and look good. It's not just going to be some black tar looking stuff, you know. I don't know. I think the black market will always be there. That's, you know, there's only certain people that can afford that certain price of product, especially in concentrates, because we all know that's through the roof expensive.
Explain how like concentrates came onto the scene really, because a lot of people still don't really understand how that evolved. Like, it just, for most people, suddenly was there and was just huge.
Yeah, it evolved from what I'm talking about now. People, you know, open end tube blasting, out of PVC pipe far enough back, you know, into a petri dish, and just double boiling off, you know, on warm water, like, you know, and you get that honey oil. I remember, like, I was like maybe a freshman, and I had an older buddy. He would go up to Harborside, and he brought back these honey buds this one time. Dude, I'm sure this oil was just garbage, but buds just soaked in it. I remember smoking this stuff, dude. I was so ripped in his truck, back of his truck, just like, fuck, dude. Like, we didn't even move for an hour. Like, the smoke was super thick. That's probably the first time I smoked an oil thing, and that was a long time ago, before I ever made any oil or anything like that. So it's been around, but I think it evolved just from that. And people, hey, it's natural. We're all competitors. Like, if you got a buddy that's making it and he made something, you want to make something better, it's just going to progress naturally. And, and then, dude, hash has been around forever. Basically the new age hash.
Yeah.
It's concentrated
And you have
form.
a couple of old timers and people that will say that, well, I've been making wax for decades already. You guys just took this long to catch up. So there's people like that out there that I think some are lying, some are legitimately telling the truth.
I got a buddy from Oregon, dude, up there. They've been doing it for a while. Like, he was telling me he'd go to like the DFO, the Degenerate Flame Off. He blew glass for Jerome Baker for a while, and dude, he said people would just be going around with all just trays of wax, like in the Petri dishes still, up there back in like 2001, 2000. So I know this stuff's been around. It just finally hit the market, or, made it mainstream enough. Someone finally decided to brand it.
Right.
And that's really where it took off.
On your delivery service lineup, how much flower are you moving in comparison to how many concentrates and how many edibles?
Well, the last 2 days, edibles have been wild because it's 420. We got nothing left of that. But, we do very well on the flower side. We carry a little bit higher end concentrates, but also just how we're talking, you pay for what you get for. And I don't, when we're supplying a product, we don't want anything to come back negative on us. So maybe our prices are a little bit higher on the concentrate side, but it's really good stuff. I would say, but though still, it's like 65% flower sale.
And then that's kind of a two-part question too, right? Because you have two different markets. Monterey County is a lot different than down in San Diego.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, in San Diego, it's completely different.
What's the scene like there? Just
no, actually down there it's a rat race. Everyone's basically cutting each other's legs off for the better deal of the day. My partner down there, Carson, dude, I think today we're running like it's $120 top shelf ounces, $180. Half ounces, $180 ounces, and if you get an ounce, you get a free eighth, and like 4 grams live resin for $100, which is usually $100 a gram.
Wow.
Retail at some of the shops.
that is some cutthroat shit down there.
Dude, it's rough. I wouldn't want to cut down the market here, but it's not him. Other people are doing it. So
no, that's just how it is. It's business. I mean, the agricultural business is just like that too. They put each other out of business all day, every day. That's just. Yeah. The hydroponic store, gardening store business, same.
That's gotta be the worst. Just with the online stores and shit, man. That's not fun. Because it's, how are you gonna compete with someone that has a storefront compared to the online stores price wise?
Right. Brick and mortars just get destroyed. So It's
funny though how it's the opposite with the weed game.
Well, think about dispensaries as a model. Like, what do you imagine the timeline for dispensaries lasting? If, like, for example, they do get to the point where, let's say, it is federally legal.
Oh, no, then it's going to go to Amazon.
Right.
Then we're going to Amazon.
But
you know how long it's going to take?
Branding at that point, right?
And you know what? I've been telling people this, like, you're going to have to build your brand.
Thank you.
You're going to have to build your brand, here in California. But once it goes federal and we're allowed to ship it everywhere, it's just anything coming from the California, if anything that says California cannabis will be eaten up, I think, especially in the East Coast states,
Well, I think, and it has to also be attached to like what's already happening, Snoop Dogg,
all that.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's gonna be mainstream
for
stuff.
For your casual person that's not really deep into the cannabis culture, that just kind of likes to smoke weed.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this Snoop Dogg joints or Snoop Dogg vape pens. I'm gonna buy that because it's Snoop Dogg. So why wouldn't I buy it? That's what they're gonna be thinking. Yeah,
no, 100%. Yeah, it's gonna go mainstream like that. That's where all the big guys are gonna, they're gonna step in and do good for sure. But there will be, dude. A lot of people compare it to the wine, the wine industry. I like beer a little bit more, so we'll compare it to the craft breweries. they thrive. You go down to places like San Diego, and it's just craft breweries forever. Places like up in Bend, Oregon. The craft breweries, to the point where people hate, there's this brewery called 10 Barrel, and Anheuser-Busch bought them out about, I don't know, maybe like a year and a half ago or some shit like that. And they opened up a spot. They're from Oregon. They opened up a spot down in San Diego, and people are protesting it opening. They're like, we're not going here. You guys are. They started off as a craft brewery and basically got bought out. So I think you're going to have a strong culture of boutique flowers, is what I'm getting at.
There's a lot of those craft beers that people still think are like original and like legit and all that stuff, but they got bought out years ago.
Yeah, a long time ago.
That as a model in itself. What do you think about like Southern Spirits and Wine getting into the game with like a distribution?
I know they are already. I'm pretty sure is what I've been hearing. They're like, right? Aren't they part?
I think there's people that have worked there that now work for River Wellness.
Oh, okay.
Something like that,
I
or they founded it, something like that. So yeah, they're in the game. We know that they're at the state level too, obviously with lobbyists, and a lot of people have said that they're responsible for the distribution model and all of those things, or at least had an influence on it, I should say.
Of course.
I could see the distribution model, if they're going to model it somewhat off of alcohol, at least here, they would have kind of like territorial controls. So there'll be like a wholesale distributor that has like an entire territory they cover, which will still mean there's going to be a black market. Less regulation there is. I'm
interested to see these distribution spots. They're getting rid of a decent amount of product, but once this all goes mainstream, you know how much weed, if you have a distribution spot here in Monterey County, you know how much herbs is going to be coming through there? Are they really going to be able to move this amount? Because the growers are just going to be looking to the distributors if that's going to be what's implemented,
Right. I think it's going to be interesting to see what is it called today now? Like the Bureau of Marijuana Control. They changed the name of this thing so many times. I don't know what to call it. I still call it Bummer and MRSA.
MRSA.
That's what people know what that is.
That weird pronouncing McCursa.
Or McCursa nowadays, yeah. Whatever, these acronyms are out of control.
Don't try to spice up your name, boy.
My point is basically they have stated and they're aware of that January 1st, 2018, when the state is supposedly kicking on and now all these magical rules are in effect, that there's going to be dispensaries throughout California that obviously are technically illegal because they're going to have an entire inventory of product that's not in the system, product that hasn't came from licensed.
Yeah. So how do you off that?
How do you handle that? They've talked about having some sort of like grace period, perhaps, where you have some time to become licensed and you can maybe buy from some unlicensed vendors for a while, but how long is acceptable? Is 6 months enough time for that? Is a year? Is 2 years enough time for that? How long is it going to take for the legal market to really establish itself and have enough operators in it that you can do commerce with?
Yeah, how long is it going to take for those distribution guys to network out and find all these spots and be like, hey, we're online today, we're ready to go?
Do you think a lot of them are going to get eliminated though, even at that level, simply because they're not going to pass a pesticide test?
I've been telling a lot of people that I know, that I'm friends with, or that I even work with, I've been saying it for about 6 months to a year now, that I would start testing my products as if I was already being regulated, just to be prepared for it. I know it costs more money, and I know, like we talked about it being cutthroat, and especially in the gray black market, of course, people are like, why would I do that? It costs more money. Yeah. That's why it was kind of fascinating when people began branding their extracts, because they had to spend more money to do stuff like that. But anyway, I've been telling everybody you should be testing your stuff right now as if you're being regulated, because it'd be much better to have a recall that nobody knows about in a gray market than to have a recall that everyone knows about in the white market.
100%.
And it's just, if you're in it for the long term, that's what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Period.
No, there's gonna be a big hit, and that happens up in Oregon too. Everything, there'll be, I'll get word like, oh hey, there's a huge batch that didn't pass, and there's nowhere for it to go. Basically,
right.
It's gonna happen here a lot, and especially with the huge amount of grows. The size grows here compared to in Oregon are fucking tenfold. And I don't know, not to say that there's a lot of people just jumping into it, but there are some. And if you have 5 acres and you're jumping into it, and you one little thing could go wrong, you got to spray something, and then your whole fucking greenhouse is done. It's gonna happen a lot, definitely.
If you take into account like all the spectrum from the small old school like third generation farmers to the ones that are at the huge industrial commercial level, and they may not actually have experience growing cannabis, but they got 3 generations of cut flowers under their belt.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is kind of a go big or go home sort of scenario in essence, and I can't see that the small farmers, and I know there'll be some boutique ones and some people do some awesome garage stuff, but I can't see them competing with, the scale that we're looking at. I mean, there's no way around that.
Really, it's all in comparison to your overhead and what you're producing. So if you're, that's the end game.
It's gonna be more sustainable for that smaller guy.
Yeah.
In a way.
If you can guarantee that you can get rid of
berries do you go to except for maybe a farmer's market, and those people aren't making millions. They might be able to survive, but they're not going to thrive the way their competitors are.
So as a smaller farmer, our overhead, our costs are the same as the bigger. It's the same thing. If my acre of nutrients and water and light costs the same as their acre, and maybe we're producing more in our acre because we can put more time into it. There's not 10 of them. What the cost of my of goods to my pound is equivalent to theirs. Why can't you get rid of it?
I think I don't know. It's gonna be interesting because I think the small grower,
the scale. I still think the larger you are, the better your margins are.
But the thing is, the small grower is gonna have the advantage of being able to have the boutique strains that are probably grown better, that are of better quality, because it's not like a complete formula. Like if you're making alcohol, let's say, like you said, the large companies own these small craft breweries and they have a perception of being boutique when really they're owned by one of the biggest companies out there. Mm-hmm. I think with cannabis, it's a little bit different because of all the variables that go into actually growing quality cannabis. So as long as people are still smoking the flowers, I think they might have an edge in a way and might be able to survive. I don't know if they'll thrive like the big guys will, but
business to business, I think the same amount of money and time you put into a grow versus strictly a manufacturing spot, the money's much more higher return on the manufacturing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people are doing right now because of the scale, let's say it was difficult enough to move, say, 5,000 square feet's worth of grow, okay? Mm-hmm. As opposed to somebody who has 50 acres worth of commercial greenhouse grow. They're still going to have that problem. 2018 turns on, they're going to have to move it somewhere. I see just an extraordinary amount of black market weed just flooding across state lines.
I don't know what system they're going to implicate or what not to track it. I mean, if they don't, then they're golden. But if they have something that knows, hey, where are these packs, and someone comes in to look for
I think
them,
they would underreport. I think they would find ways around that. I think they'll have things like crop loss, huge astronomical numbers of crop loss. And the other thing is, even
huge
lightning struck and blew the whole thing up.
5
acres, I have no idea.
5 acres went up.
Just gone.
To be honest though, what you guys are describing, I think, is a large reason why a lot of these municipalities are going with the square foot tax.
They know they're going to
get it. Of course,
they know they're going to get people that are just not going to be honest about what they're doing exactly, and that way they still are collecting on them. And regardless of,
technically they can still move their stuff into the black market if they're not really tracking it by weight and size as rigorously as they could be. Like if you had to go in and they had to walk your property all the time just to make sure you're doing what you're doing, a canopy check is pretty easy.
Right.
So versus all the other crap that goes into it. And 5 years from now, let's say this crash does come, okay? We'll pick a middle ground number, 5 years. Say in 2023, and by the way, by 2020, there'll be organic standards for cannabis supposedly in California. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to hold on to that saying, our shit costs more to make because we put more love, time, and effort into it, and you get less shitty chemicals at the end of the day. And that's cool by me all the way. But those people versus the size and scale that we're currently at and the fact that other states are going rec. I mean, there's going to be states that try to sue us to stop commercial cannabis coming in from California because it's just crushing them. They can't get any of their tax money. It's not showing up on the books. It's nuts. How many people right now in the cottage industry that are currently cannabis growers, say out of 100, full spectrum, some at the top, some at the bottom, but the full thing, how many do you think are going to make it in 5 years? Still be doing this, and this is their primary source of income, not just a hobby.
What are you talking like at least you're not talking house grows.
We're talking somebody that's going to be a type 1 at 5,000, type 2 at 10,000, type 3 at 22 and up.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Hopefully, I mean, the overhead, like I said, the overhead on something, 5,000 square foot it's kind of doable even with the taxes. You're not going to die out. It's going to have to do with, and you'll be able to get rid of your product. You're not going to be sitting on product. I've gone to grows out here at greenhouses where it's a 10 by fucking 40 walk-in freezer and it's stacked from floor to ceiling, and it's like, we're pulling another one next week. It's like, well, this one's still here. How you pay your bills with product that's not sold. If you can just, if your overhead's lower, if your cost of goods is the same, you can survive. It's, if you have the distribution network to get rid of that smaller amount of product, then that's what's going to work for you. If you have the distribution network to get rid of a large amount, like Harborside,
or if you have the unique product that maybe nobody has this strain, or
then we're
this is one of the things that I think a lot of people don't necessarily know because they haven't grown before. But what I've learned from working in the hydroponic business and also growing before is when you start out and you've never grown before, a lot of times you go into it kind of thinking like a smoker, not like a grower. And what I mean by that is you go in and you want to grow a shitload of strains. Because you think you're just going to grow a ton of strains and it's going to be all good.
I'll get an eighth of this, eighth
of
this.
And then you get into it and you realize that each strain is different. They all want different amounts of this, different amounts of that, nutrients, water, everything. And so I think it's going to be difficult for a large-scale grower to grow a large number of strains and do it very well, as opposed to a smaller grower who's going to probably be a little bit better at that because it's going to be easier to handle and to manage.
And on that too, there's opportunities out there. There's extraction companies that, hey, they know that you're going to be good at your boutique flowers. They come at you and be like, hey, grow these 12 strains for me. And let me get them back for you for this price when they're done, because we know you do a good job. Well, then you just sold your product even before it went in the ground. And that happens a lot. Not to say they won't do it on the greenhouse stuff. Don't get me wrong, but
how much product, if it's going to go to this size and scale, and let's say there is kind of like a bottleneck for selling your product either legally, locally, or even the glut of the market going out into the East Coast black market, what do you think is the percent of flower coming out of just Monterey County as a rough guess that's going to end up getting blasted?
I would
95% of the flower?
I know it's between 70 and 90, depending on people's distribution networks and their connections. There's a lot of people maybe right now that don't have, the ability or the connection to get extraction done. And if they are, it's like, it's not coming back, maybe packaged or whatever. Maybe they're just getting slabs and then they got to, sand it. And then there's other ones that are doing it all. You guys broke
down the math, right, of like how much you actually get. So if you give the breakdown of like a pound of trim versus specific flower that they're going after to blast, how does 1 pound of flower versus 1 pound of trim go up in value if you actually do it as a concentrate? Like, what is your return?
There's a lot of factors there.
Just to make it clean, you can take your $1,000 or your $1,200 pound that you were going to sell in greenhouse and potentially turn that into anywhere from $3,000 to maybe $4,000 a pound if you're really, really good and you have a really high cost product, you know what I mean? So it could range anywhere from that to that. But what I think is really interesting on the topic you guys are talking about is like 2 years ago, if you were to 2 or 3 years ago, if you were to say, okay, turn everything to concentrate because that's going to end up being, the way to go, people would have been like, what? But now if you say that, everyone's like, yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, no shit. This is, yeah.
Well, it's easier to store. It's easier to get rid of.
And so my point to that though is that all these people know it now, so why wouldn't they just all do it themselves?
Yeah.
Ultimately, just try to hire some smart guy like Andrew or people that and just say, come work for my mega farm, and I'm going to pay you a ridiculous amount of money, and we're just going to make wax all day.
Yeah, and just do blasts, do runs after runs.
So we'll have flooded wax.
Yeah,
coming shortly too.
So
I
that
think
wave happens right after the flower one, right?
100%. It's hand and foot. Like you give an extractor the product, it's done. It could be done the next day. So, especially on the live resin stuff, it cuts down costs on the farmer's end. Don't have to trim it as much, and they can get a return way faster. You're not waiting for a dry and cure.
Just the fact that, like we talk about, the oil itself is like sugar. It's an additive for everything. The oil is the ingredient that makes a product a cannabis product.
And that's what's going to have to happen for people to get rid of everything. They're going to have to diversify into fucking edibles, sodas. Everything.
Everything.
Wax.
Everything it could be infused with, it's going to happen.
That's the only way to dilute it out for everyone.
Or pre-rolls. Okay, remember that used to be the shit. You go to Beach Town, they had a dispensary there. It's easy. You pick
get
it
a
up
couple
and you
pre-rolls.
move. Right.
Yeah.
You really expensive.
Yeah.
Like massively marked up. But now you have disposable vape cartridges.
I know.
That, how good does that sell? Like an equivalent to
They're good, but man, sometimes if you have a good a good joint's fucking bomb. It's a different high too. Those CO2 cartridges are kind of they feel like they don't last that long.
It's totally different, man.
Yeah,
I'm a dabber. I prefer to dab more often than I smoke flower, but my girlfriend still smokes a lot of flower, and so I'll occasionally smoke joints with her. And it's just a completely different high than if you took a dab or you hit a vape, and it's so much more mellow. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
As far as moving our product and penetration into the market, what do you think is the safest, most innocuous way to introduce people to this? Like, I remember, for example, everybody used to think edibles, and right now you're currently sold out because it's like 420 with those, but like everybody thought edibles was going to be the thing that was going to like just blow up cannabis. In a huge
like a year
way.
or 2 years ago, they're like, oh, this is it. Oh.
Right, but I'd much rather smoke flower, and I would actually rather vape before even some flower. Some flower is amazing. And then just dabbing alone, that's where the hit level is. Like I like a really high dose. Like for example, some products they have a low dose hit. They may be pretty, but they're expensive and something you give your grandmother versus some other ones where they knock you on your ass, and that's what people want. Bang for buck.
Dude, that's what happens to me. I don't know. I've eaten enough edibles, but like I'm not like an edible fiend, because it either does nothing for me or it just puts me on my dick until fucking tomorrow. Like it's not.
I don't like to mess with edibles.
Yeah.
But I think what your point is, like people that are new to it, they're attracted to edibles because they're
not smoking the bad thing.
They're almost like the opposite of like Sour Patch Kids. They say that first they're sour, then they're sweet. Edibles, first they're sweet, and then they're sour because you're like, oh, I'm just going to eat this cute little cupcake. And then next thing you know...
John, no.
Next thing you know, you're having a spiritual experience, and you're like, what the fuck is this? I thought it was just some weed. Or you're calling 911 telling them you're going to die or something. So they don't understand that. Yeah, it's probably one of the gnarliest ways to get introduced to cannabis is to eat an edible.
It's the cutest yet gnarliest.
You should probably just take a puff off a vape pen.
Yeah,
and
you're better off.
Call it a day.
Yeah, definitely.
You're better off. Fucking no, definitely. The edibles though, for me, no bueno. I'll dab or smoke or whatever instead.
I think what's interesting too about the edibles is the dosing of it. How much are they going to allow? There's been companies out there that have predicted that it's going to be like other states where it's only 5 to 10 milligrams that your edible is going to be allowed to be, and so they try to introduce that to the market, and then the market doesn't necessarily want that because they're trying to provide something that the regulators want, but not something
what
that
the consumer
wants. Exactly. And so consumers, as we don't know, they want the highest dose for the cheapest price. Period. They want to get the most bang for their buck. Most of them. The people that are new, that are just getting into it, maybe they want 5 to 10, but if they do become a regular edible user on a consistent basis, they're not going to want 5 to 10 anymore after a little while.
I'll tell you, our most consistent selling edible is 1,000 milligram brownie. We sell out of. I can't keep them on the shelves. Yeah.
On the spectrum, like what sells at the top?
Yeah, that's for edibles. That 1,000 milligram brownie, and then the 500 milligram brownie right underneath it. And then it goes to these like 300 milligram like gummies. A lot of people like.
I love gummy bears.
And
I love
like
gummy bear products.
Movie theater style and all that. Sour strips and all that shit. That's just super appealing though. So a lot of people, they'll just grab those. But I don't know. Then your chocolates and stuff are right there next to those, like 420 bars, bang bars, all that stuff. Chiba Chews, all those kind of fall in the same category. But those 1,000 milligram brownies, dude, I tell you what, I don't know what people do on those or how long. That would last me a month.
Yeah.
Dude, I did a cake pop once.
Oh, dude,
300. Oh my god!
I got a story about those.
Knocked on my ass. I was hugging my fucking recycling bin, ready to throw up for like 2 hours on my kitchen floor. I was like, "What the fuck is this, man?"
Mine kicked in before I got home, and I was driving down Carmel Valley Road, and I was like, "Dude, I'm drunk right now," and I didn't drink anything. I ate it on the grade, did something there on the way back. It was a fresh one from Spike's house. Just left there, dude.
Oh, my goodness.
And man, dude, yeah, I was like, what the fuck, dude? I had to pull over and have my girlfriend drive. It was bad. And I got a tolerance for weed.
Well, it's the edibles are interesting, too, because everyone's different. Like, I got buddies that never get high off of it. I got buddies that will take that 1,000 milligram brownie to the face and, like, don't feel hardly anything.
Oh, man, I've seen people claim that, but...
I've seen people claim it and lie about it. I've seen people tell the truth, too.
You won't see me for a month.
Oh, I had the worst headache.
Come out from the woods.
What, can you imagine a grandma doing like 20 milligram for the first time in her life?
Holy shit.
Because you'd eat it and you're like, well, I'm not really feeling anything.
Hey, grandma will come in, dude. You know the pills that grandma's taking? She'll show you. She'll show you a little something. She'll be like, no, this ain't nothing. Popping 80s every morning for breakfast.
Codeine with your pancakes.
Yeah. Grandma will come out and swamp that ass.
On opiates and old people. This is a beautiful moment we've progressed to.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, the edibles are crazy. So anybody listening to this, if you're new to cannabis or thinking about it, think twice about getting edibles, man. Just go get a fucking vape pen and take like 2 puffs off it and just chill, okay?
Go for a walk by the beach. Just relax on that. Don't go nuts. Like,
yeah, those are not the way into it. God. I don't know. What is that? Is that what you're on right now? Dabbing? That's your favorite dabbing? Out of smoking? Like to dab, or you still like flowers?
I still love flowers. I just have just a little bowl. I go out on my porch. For that's amazing. And then I have a dab rig, and I'm hitting that like constantly. So in the morning, I honestly like the flower just because I have a really nice porch, and it's got a good view of the ocean. So I just chill out there. And then when I'm at the computer and I have to close my blinds so I'm not fucking looking out at the ocean, and so I can get something done, I got these 2 monitors. I'm dabbing like a fiend, like an absolute beast. And I'm just going between my 2 screens, and I got my bottle of water on the left, and I'm
just handling it.
Yeah, dab on the right, and then
bottle on the left, dab on the right.
Well,
that's what it is.
I got something we should. How much time do we have, Christina? How long have we been doing this? Okay, cool. We got time. I want to talk about the budget trailer bill that just came out recently, since we can talk about some regulation stuff. So the governor's budget trailer bill recently just came out, and it has a lot of proposed changes that they want to make to MRSA or MRCURSA, whatever acronym you so choose. And some of the changes are good. Some of the changes a lot of people are happy with, and there's other changes that people aren't happy with. What they're basically doing, or it looks like they're doing, is they're making a lot of changes to MRSA that are in AUMA, because it's easier for them to make changes to MRSA because it was passed by legislature, and AUMA was passed by the voter initiative. So if they want to make certain changes to AUMA, they would potentially have to get another vote out there and have people vote on if that would be okay or not. So it's much easier to change something that they created. So some of those changes include basically allowing people to be their own distributors and have vertical integration. So you can grow it, you can manufacture it, you can distribute it, you can do all those things. Currently, if you're a distributor, you're not allowed to be any other license type except for a transporter, of course, to transport the product. So a lot of people are happy with that, and other people are not happy with that. A lot of the people that aren't happy with it are people that are boutique growers that are smaller farms, because they feel like if that happens, these mega farms are going to be able to control everything, and they're going to be able to distribute, do everything, and just have a crazy monopoly on the market. So what are your guys' opinions on that? Do you think that should be allowed? Do you think vertical integration should be allowed? Should we prevent people from being a distributor? And
I think anybody should be a distributor. I think anybody should be allowed to be a distributor, and I don't even think the transport license should even exist, honestly.
In a business perspective, in my own business, that's what everyone wants to in-house everything you can, so why cut out the middleman.
Well, the benefit. Okay, let me throw this out there. The benefits of a distribution company, though, is it's easy to move a lot of your product if you don't want to have to deal with that shit. But if you're a small scale person and you want to move to 3 different dispensaries, and that's all you got to do is make like a couple of drops a month. That's it.
You're killing
That's beautiful. I think you should have the option. I think if people want to become a distributor, sure, you can do that. You can get a license to have a big ass warehouse, and you can move stuff. I think the transport license is ludicrous. Honestly, I know they have some reasons why, but I think it's so stupid. I mean, just call it distribution and give that basically same equivalent of the transport license. That's retarded. The next thing that you do you give people the option. You know what? There is going to come down to a point where there's going to be 4 to 5 major distributors for cannabis across the country, just like with booze. Okay? Microbrews are going to get bought up. Some are just bending over waiting to be bought up. I mean, they want that to be done.
Yeah,
Cash the fuck out. There's going to be people that are going to be sick and tired of that shit. But that should be an option. It shouldn't be a requirement, because for the small people, if they get that distribution thing plugged in there, they are fucked. They are cut out in a lot of different ways, because just like you go to a regular grocery store, the distributors for cookies, for example, you fight for shelf space on that.
100%. You give up baseball tickets for that shelf spot.
There's 10 cookies, and they're all owned by the same company of fucking Frito-Lay and Pepsi. So I mean, that shit is over. Like, and it is an additive. It is a product, like you talk about. I mean, it's just something that's going to go on there. But that's my take on it. So,
what do you think? do you like it?
I mean, like Ryan said, like if you have a distribution, you're obviously going to have to break down your price a little bit, because that's where they're making their money at. As a small farm, if you're only producing enough, maybe for these people that are getting into it, they don't have a distribution network set up already. If you have a small farm and you already have that linked up, and everyone you've been working with previously is also going to get permitted, well, it's kind of plug and play in my thought. But don't get me wrong, it would be nice just to be able to be like, hey, take care of all these packs. I don't have to drive. Here you go. No, call me when they're gone, and I'll pick up my check.
I agree. I think it should be allowed. But I mean, I can understand why people are concerned with it. But I think if you want to be a distributor, be a distributor.
Yeah,
there's going to be people that don't want to.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's going to be people that are going to say, I'm focusing on growing 100%.
Yeah. And that's all I want.
I don't even worry about selling it.
Yeah.
That's what the distributor's for.
Yeah. So you can implement. You should be able to in-house it if you have the network and the means to be able to do it. You should be able to do it. But if you don't even want to deal with it, great. And there's another market. There's another job market for people.
There would be. If you think about how they would actually organize the distribution hubs across the state, we would have one right here in the middle of the state as it is, because we do $4.2 billion a year in agriculture. That's just lettuce and strawberries, basically. Brassicas as well.
Artichokes.
I love artichokes.
Don't forget about the bill.
No, fried little artichokes sound so goddamn good right
bill.
now. On the side... in the south, you'd have a couple of spots in the LA area and San Diego. Certainly, you'd have buildings that are like 10,000 square feet. They might even do this cubically, because they're actually giant frozen storage lockers. I mean, giant refrigerators, basically. And they'll be moving it, and they'll be moving a lot. There'd be maybe one in the north, maybe. There'd probably be 3 up in the Bay Area, one in the north of San Francisco across the pond, and one to the right, probably in like Oakland, Alameda County, and then one in SF, South SF, because it's cheaper there. There's distribution hubs like that. Like, there's going to be people that plug that in.
It's already basically set up in all those spots for the ag, so
right.
It'd be really smart for like a cooling company just to just phase right over. Like, hey, we already have these huge spots that we used to store fucking everything in here. If you're bringing in wax compared to heads of lettuce, bring in 50 times the amount for every head of lettuce, If someone was smart like that, they'd probably roll over into that, because it would take a lot for, these places here, these ag companies, they have, it's just not one company having it in LA and one company having it in SD. They're here in Monterey or in Salinas, and they have all those coolers and all those spots that you're talking about already.
Right.
It'd be really hard for someone to acquire all those spots and locations on this new business venture,
So they would just literally turn them on. I
Well,
mean, like,
and
that's
I
a
think-
major real
I think-
company that would just say, we'll just move this now, no problem.
A big reason why they don't, though, is because they're worried about
Yeah.
feds, right?
Yeah,
and
they got real
they already
money.
have a huge billion-dollar business established. Why would I need to take this risk?
Why am I fucking with it?
What usually happens is they have kids that are like, this is my shit. You know what I mean? This is my internet bubble, Dad. So let me do my thing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
this is my sector right here.
Yeah. So then they want to get into it, but that kind of leads into another thing that was in the budget trailer bill, which was the separation of medical and recreational. So they want that to be completely separate in the sense of not even on the same property. So if you had, let's say, if
do.
you had a couple greenhouses, you couldn't say
Ridiculous.
this greenhouse is for medical and this is for rec. If you had a dispensary, you couldn't sell to both rec and medical. It's
On
something they're
one.
proposing.
That is
And the reason they're
ridiculous.
proposing it, or at least one reason I've heard, is because they want to try to protect the medical market from the federal government, because the federal government has said through Spicer and Sessions that they may potentially go after recreational cannabis, but they're not really interested in medical
They're not
cannabis.
gonna be able to, because Prop 215 has been around for so long.
So what do you guys think about that? What do you think about
Dude,
their
that's-
reasoning? What do you think
You're
about the
fucking
idea?
absurd.
Yeah. I mean, that is crazy. That's crazy. I can't grow. But is there more regulations on the recreational cannabis that I grow next to the medical cannabis I grow?
Their idea is like, let's say you had a farm with 2 greenhouses, for easy math. One was
Yeah.
for medical, one was for rec. The federal government might raid you because you have a
on
recreational
your rec one.
on your rec one, but now it's affecting your medical business too because it's the same property that they're messing with,
Fucking
and the same
absurd.
entity that they're messing with.
It's a horrible idea. It's an absolutely horrible idea. That's
There's the
so
government
confusing. It's so convoluted. People are
pimping
going to
us
like
out.
start defining like just rec versus medical. I mean, it's bad.
I agree.
That's
I don't think it's
crazy.
a good idea. I
Yeah.
mean, Colorado, they had a little more. Honestly, a little more balls in my opinion, because they were saying that if they do decide to come after our rec guys, we're just gonna try to turn them into medical and give them a medical license.
read
And be like,
that.
well, they're not rec anymore, so
Yeah.
fuck
Boom.
you.
They automatically have medical. Which, dude, why wouldn't our state do that?
That's a lot
Like,
more bodacious than
Yeah.
talking about what we're talking about.
No, I mean that's a good play on their part.
You know, of all the things, okay, in the trailer bill, we got 5 minutes left. And all the things in the trailer bill, in your opinion, what else is at the top of the list?
Those two are the biggest ones. I mean, everything else is most of them trying to fold it into AUMA. Like I believe they were proposing to change the ownership and applicant definition to what AUMA has, which has the 20% of ownership versus the 5% that's in MRSA. I'm trying to think what else was in there off the top of my head. For anyone that's interested, that's listening to this, if you want to read it yourself, you can find it on MontereyCountyNormal.org. We have the document right there, so you can review this. It's about 7 pages that gives you kind of a summary, and then the entire document 79 pages if you really want to get into the actual language that they're changing. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was really controversial or that people were concerned with, other than those first 2 things I talked about. At least initially, like I said, it's 79 pages, so there might be, California Growers is doing a really good job at analyzing it. They're going through that and sharing their thoughts on it. I think they just came out with the email today asking for changes and saying what they're not okay with and what they would like to see. So I'm sure we'll see a lot more from some of these groups on it and get people's opinion and the consensus.
They've been fighting the good fight for the small farmers for a long time right now. And
Yeah.
they've been continuing to do that. And they're in pretty much a ground war up there for most of the stuff they're doing. So they're crushing it.
Yeah, but I can't think of anything else that's major. The other thing we might as well talk about real quick is we're waiting for the draft regulations to come from some of the different departments that are responsible for regulating this a little more specifically. So right now we kind of have the skeleton, which is MRSA and AB 266 and et cetera. But we're waiting for a little bit more guts and meat to it, and that's supposed to come sometime this month. I'd probably imagine it's going to be like on the last day of the month, just because they're going to maximize their deadlines.
What are the odds?
But that's what a lot of us are waiting for, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that in future episodes, because I'm expecting that to be pretty extensive and give us a good idea of what they're thinking and what we'll be ultimately affected by.
Nice. Dude, on the small growers then, real quick, I read about this spot. We're talking about boutique flowers earlier. I should have mentioned this. I think it's up in Redwood City. This guy's already building out like it's huge buildings to be able to put in like 14 to 20 boutique flower growers. With like 10,000 square foot spots.
Wow.
5 to 10,000 square foot spots. So he'll just like facilitate all of them, one-stop shop for the distribution or whatever. You go in there and you got all these boutique indoor flower guys that'll be there, craft flower guys.
That's dope.
You got any blasting on site as well?
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
I think it was Redwood City, right?
It's Redwood City, huh?
Yeah, I was reading about that as well. I think there was someone that had commented on the article and had said something about the state is thinking about adding a processing license.
To it?
to like the lineup of licenses they have. So if you just wanted to do nothing but trim and dry and cure and do the whole post-harvest processing, that might be a license. And so the grower would send that to somebody.
Harvesting crews in ag all day. I mean, that needs to be something.
And at first I thought kind of like, why would we do that? Because I'm so used to the way it is today in the cannabis world, and it's kind of like I would think most growers are going to be like, well, fuck that. I want to do that because they're going to fuck it up and they're not going to dry it and cure it the right way. And
manhandle my nugs.
As it gets more mainstream but I mean, as it gets more mainstream, I guess it makes sense.
Oh, I mean, dude, once you get to a certain size, that's what has to happen. Right. There's wine harvesting. There's crop harvest service here. That's what you have to do. Definitely.
All right, well, gentlemen.
Andrew, anything you want to plug or anything before we finish this thing up, or? Yeah,
man, hit up the Nug Company on Weed Maps, and we got all the prime in stock here, and if you guys make it out to Tilly Gort's, we'll be there with open dab bar tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess we should have said that. We have an event tomorrow, and we'll let you guys know how that went. But you could check out this recording on the $1pound.com. Check us out on Facebook. We're going to start having these episodes regularly and have guests like Andrew, different people from different parts of the industry, and just get their take on all this craziness that's happening.
And have a good 420. See ya.
Happy 420.
Peace.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the $1 Pound Podcast with your hosts, Ryan and Joey, online at $1pound.com. We'll catch you next time.